Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to review Solana. So this is a top-down view of the project to show the overall status of how I view it based on my research. We could see that there's some risks with price activity considering that it's seen some massive rise. So there's always risk to enter a project that has aggressively moved up in price. Token allocation considerations, significant profits of the founders or early investors who are sitting on some massive rewards if they've haven't sold their tokens yet. There's also, it's got relatively, it's got governance, on-chain governance. I put this as green because some of the research that I've seen there looks pretty good, so they're on the right track. And strong leadership, and it's good technology. So that's just a general top-down of a Solana from like a flyover. Okay, so let me just get right to marking up the canvas. Okay, so what problem or project does this, what kind of market is this thing going for? So Solana is a scalable trust computer with low fees. It's a layer one, a scalable blockchain. So it's a very fast layer one blockchain. In fact, it's one of the fastest. With some unique technology that allows for it to accomplish this unique speed that many of the others cannot acquire. So one of the co-founders said, it seems infeasible that everyone will consolidate to one network. So, and so that shows you that the founders understand that we're playing with an interoperability future. And yes, this blockchain, Solana, connects to Ethereum and aims to connect to Terra and Polkadot and all of those in the future. So it shows you that they're on the right track with that. So it's basically a trust computer, right? So what market is this going for? Well, a computer can be used for anything, and a trust computer can be used for anything that's financial. To be super general, a layer one, I have it actually right here. So a layer one is basically the blockchain, the protocols, the consensus, the mechanisms. That's what Solana is. Whereas something like Polkadot is a layer zero, which deals with managing the physical network infrastructure, the internet itself, interface between the blockchain, the protocols, connections, hardwares, miners, etc., the human element. That's layer zero. And, layer two is off-chain data. Well, Solana is a layer one. It is a blockchain with protocols, consensus mechanisms, functional components, in a running blockchain. And it has unique technology that makes it one of the fastest to reach finality, one of the better technologies out there. So it has 50K plus per second transactions, and it could scale with Moore's law and hardware. But there is a cautionary note. Solana did go down in December 2020 for 6 hours, but that's when it was in its beta stages, and it's still somewhat in beta. But as time goes on, these things work out the kinks. So there is that. Regarding proof of history, one of its main technological achievements, they use recursive verifiable delay functions to hash incoming events. Every event is unique in its hash and count, allowing for event ordering. So, like in the same way that we could take photographs of the spread of dyes in water, and what we're observing when we take those photographs in the order of events as the entropy or the mathematical distribution takes place, we can know the ordering of how the mixture of the dyes in the water would spread. So it's the same kind of mathematical principles being used for, a clock that is established over the blockchain. So this thing has a clock, internal clock, and that clock is established using mathematics and, laws of math. And that's as deep as you need to go. But that clock ability is what allows for, it's a new technology, a new approach, and that's what allows for it to have its kind of finality, its speed faster than most other blockchains. It's the fastest blockchain around. It's got like 47 major dApps, proof of history and proof of stake. And apparently they claim to have the trilemma solved. And one of the things I will note, even though I have this crossed out, the trilemma is not a real thing. Back in the day, in the early days of the blockchain, people would say that you could only have, the reason I'm trying to, my brain runs really fast, so it's hard for me to, speak at the rate that my brain speaks. So like, that's one of the reasons anyways, the trilemma is not a real thing. Back in the day, Vitalik Buterin said that, this trilemma that blockchains could either be scalable, security, or decentralized. And I've postulated that using math or using code will eventually overcome this. And I think this is one of the blockchains that does that. I think Polkadot, I think Algorand. There's several blockchains that have already proven that this trilemma thing is not real. It was only a matter of time before innovation would find a way around it, and we would get finality with scalability, etc. And even Sato is one of those projects as well. Okay, but the reason I have this one crossed out here is because, one of the Ethereum community was attacking this project and saying that it's not decentralized. And they're right in the sense that, the current token distribution means that the blockchain is not decentralized but this will be less of an issue in the future, in my opinion, as founders and early investors eventually do sell out. As, you have to give it time for the tokens to become distributed. But that stated, so the censorship risk is small in my opinion. But one of the things that I'm, going over here to this, trilemma that this blockchain claims to solve. Let me see. Okay, so right here, another, this is the more critical components of it from the Ethereum community's perspective. And even, my perspective is a little lighter. But leaders of the proof of history sequence and the validators chosen by the total stake. So basically, this is from Solana's notes themselves, how this blockchain works, right? The leaders of the proof of history sequence and the validators chosen by the total stake, basically more stake equals more validation and transaction extensions to the blockchain. And we could see here from the distribution that 60% of the network is held by less than 1,000 people, likely, right? I don't know the exact numbers, but how many people do you think are there in the founders? How many people do you think are in the foundation? How many people do you think that are involved in the investors? So realistically, 60% of this thing is controlled by less than 1,000 people, at least the token supply. Unless they sold out. But since this thing has not seen a crash in price, it actually skyrocketed in price when 90% of the tokens were released. It's highly likely that they're still holding onto the tokens, and there was huge vesting rewards. That leads me to think that these people are thinking long term, and they would rather just sell out as they get rewarded as being a big stakeholder, and it's kind of like being a shareholder in an entity. So Solana is not decentralized right now in its token distribution. And that's just a fact. It shows you, if you look at the accounts, it looks more distributed than it really is. But that with this recent, that is what it is. I'll leave it at that. But it is a powerful technology, and I personally don't think it's as big as an issue as the Ethereum community that I read criticizing this project. But for me personally, it's not as big as an issue because proof of stake is just like, mining. Like if you have 90% of the mining, you're still going to be in the interest of the mining protocol because you don't want to damage your mining equipment's value. So proof of stake has the right incentives in place so that those people will, not do something stupid, like censor something. And the moment they do, they reveal their control and the whole thing kind of loses value. So I don't think it's the biggest issue in the world. So I don't think it's an issue for price. Et cetera, et cetera. Potential issues for censorship, I think, are small. Okay, so that's just to go over, that super generalized layout there. Okay, so let's start from the top into my total analysis. So future increase in demand for the token, I think that is a likely scenario. I do think that this project is going to stick around. value for target market is large. So the market that Sato is trying to hit is a multi-trillion-dollar market, DeFi space, but they're also I think they will find market share for speed and security because of this as being one of the better projects for speed, where speed to finality is an extremely important element of the blockchain. Solana will be there. So I think this is a player that has established itself and will stick around. Regarding the tokens used for services or governance, the token is used to pay fees, proof of stake governance, and proof of stake proportional stake equals block production. So it's security of the network. So the token is in fact integral and used and part of the system. So let's get into some more critical areas of the blockchain. So basically, all of this stuff is the social media stuff, and what it's basically saying is you are not early to this project. This thing is in a hype stage mania, hype stage warning, if I can write it over there, right? So this thing is being hyped all over the place, and so you're not early, and that is a risk. And so I will put current awareness is actually quite high. You're not early to this project. Regarding the distribution, okay, so token supply distribution is pretty bad, as we went over earlier. But another thing to consider that's good about this project is that there is a fee burning model, and fee burning models make the distribution less relevant. That's why I made this color yellow instead of red. I would have made this red if it wasn't for the fact that it does fee burning. And what fee burning does is it means that the project's price will actually correlate with activity, not who control. It could be two people who have all the supply. But if it has a lot of activity on it, and if there's a lot of, it's like a company at that point, right? So because this project has dividends, or it has dividends in the sense that it burns tokens, that means it will trend to the time value of money, and that will be a PDE ratio that's respectable, roughly move to a respectable PDE based on usage. So that's what makes, even though the token supply distribution is not the best, that's what makes it more in the yellow range and less of a concern. And, the token distribution is just, I put these as neutral things. Now, the reason why I did put them as neutral instead of green even is because here's a warning. There's 33% of the supply, those early buyers are sitting on top of 300x returns within less than 2 years. And there was a lot of VCs. And whenever you got VCs involved, they hold the price down, especially after the price has performed really well. So this thing's sitting way up here, sitting way up here, and it's got VC money. Those VCs are going to try to sell out. So it might do one of these for years. You never know. There's that risk because it's sitting on a 300x. Okay, and those people need to have their faith, their conviction tested, and they have not. But that might not be the case. Maybe this thing is just going to be something that never goes down. But I've never seen that personally. That's always a risk to consider. So that's the risks associated with the distribution. This is green. Okay, so low market cap. This thing is not a low market cap. It's one of the top projects. So once again, you are not in early in this project. And recent price action was 20x over the last year. So it is moderately beaten the average. The average cryptos the average performance was 13.7x of cryptos, and this thing's been at 20x. So it's not the safest crypto because it's seen that slightly better than average performance. But still, it's not super red. But that's what made me more that's what made all of these things that we just looked at, over here is what makes me more cautionary on this side of my equation for my, the strength of how this thing is going to perform in the future. Okay. So, niche. It is currently serving a niche. It has dexes such as Serum, which is has major backers, club architecture, etc. It's going to have some cool liquidity provisions that allow for unique liquidity across Solana. And it has relative exponential growth, but that's what you see when something's freshly launched. So it's kind of too new to say exponential adoption is happening for that. But it has a live niche, which is a powerful, and you always want to see that in a project. So governance, I saw their research, and they're conducting governance, and the token will be involved with governance. You can check it out here at GitHub Solana program library pool 1635. That's where I saw the details of their governance, and it looked like they're well away on their way to making some good things happen there. High value people prioritize upgrades. That is the case. Strategic partnerships. So this is, like it's got this guy, which is, Sam Bankman-Fried, and he's a multi-billionaire, founded FTX, and he's a big shareholder in this thing, and so he's going to do everything in his power to make sure it's successful. He's like a Peter Thiel in the crypto space. And so he's got those connections, and he's like Solana now is a player, and you got this guy on the helm doing his best to make this thing, it's like his part of his deck, and he's going to make sure it's successful or do what he can. He has quite a bit of power over this ecosystem, and that is a red flag in decentralization, but it's also a power, having a powerful person do everything they can to make something happen. So, these are some of the partnerships. A lot of the exchanges are part of this thing. Binance is a big founder of this project as well. So Binance is going to do everything in their power to make sure Solana is successful. So that's another thing to be considered. Alameda Research and FTX are the major on board that caused a lot of this thing to back up. But it's got major backing. It's the card in the deck of some major players in the crypto space. So I don't think this thing has a big moat because it is a layer 1 blockchain and there's a bunch of those. So as far as a moat is like protection of its whoever comes into its ecosystem, I actually don't think it has that because even though it is some of the best technology, it's just a layer 1 and there's a ton of those now. And so there's all these different specializations amongst different blockchains. I do think that Solana will have a moat, I guess, in finance where second finality is going to matter. Some of the hash graph protocols will deal with that as well. So we'll see. Only time will tell. But, for the most part, I'm just going to put no. I'm going to put neutral, not negative, not positive, just neutral. As far as best of the competition, I am going to say it is the best of the competition in that it's the fastest technology. It's great technology, and so it has that. It might have some weaknesses with onboarding developers, but that's, as time goes on, I think more and more people are going to move into the developer space. It's one of the best career choices a person can make. Impressive achievements for the team. The team made this thing, and they have several inventions, such as these unique Solana components, such as proof of history, tower Byzantine, fault tolerance, turbine, Gulfstream, sea level, pipeline, cloud break, archive. So they have all these innovations in the blockchain to make it truly scalable. And so there's some highly technical people here. Antonoli Yokanov and the co-founder Ray Gokul. I don't know if I messed that up, but powerful people, very technical, very intelligent, and very business driven. And they say censorship resistance is extremely important, so it's good that they know that, even though this thing is held 60% by not that many actors. In regards to Cardano, the founder said, get your expletive together and ship something. So I thought that was funny, and I happen to agree with him. And the CEO rank is 8.5. I maybe could even put him a little higher, but mostly for technical ability and his business abilities. That's actually one of the higher CEOs. So I'm going to put him as he's pretty dang strong in the crypto space as a CEO, and he's proven himself. He's going to be sticking around as one of the players. In this team, they're building their reputation on this very powerful project. Evidence that management is trustworthy. Well, they got some of the things that there was some inconsistencies with, finding information with the distribution of the tokens and etc. and being straightforward. But the team is wealthy, they're understanding, and they share valuable information. But the lack of transparency and token economics, and I did find some of those details later. But one of the details right here is in April 2020, 13 million tokens in a single account caused them to do a token burn, and it turned out to be a loan to a market maker such as Binance. So there was some iffy information right there, and that makes me a little. One of the most important things is that you have to trust the people that build something, and if they're not out forward with the fact that with how the tokens are distributed, that is a cautionary note to be considered. But overall, I did put positive. But one thing to think about is if VCs invest in something, they're going to dump on you. Like the VCs, they like to dump on you. They like to take your money. So I have invested, disclosure, I've invested in Polkadot, but I don't like that VCs invested in Polkadot because that's one of the things that holds a project like that back. VC investing is not good. You want the community engagement. You want young developers to get excited about your ecosystem, 20-year-olds with nothing to come buy a couple of your tokens, get involved, get paid in your tokens, and start building things. You want them not to be competing with people sitting on 600x return. That's what you want. And this project has those VCs sitting on massive returns, and so the distribution doesn't look good, But that being said, they are trustworthy I did conclude that they're trustworthy because they're so competent, so technical, and they deliver. At the end of the day, that's what really matters. And so yes, I have all these things as green. Developer motivation, high value upgrades, long-term vision and mission. Like empowering people to work person to person in a scalable way. All these are powerful things, and they know the ethos, they know censorship resistance, they got all the right messaging, so I'm putting trustworthy for now as my conclusion. Value of services provided to increase, I expect that to be the case. And they have everything set aside for developer growth in the future. Team has majority control, so that's actually a good thing in many cases. So I did put that as a good thing. Now, large business models that demand token to reflect their needs, I put this as yes, because we're already seeing FTX, etc., using this as a means of shareholders of the future crypto volume, because this project is going for the financial sector of crypto because of its speed and its capability. So I think it's going to specialize in that area. And so businesses are going to want to vote in that, and that's a pretty big sector to go for. And that's why I do think this thing will stick around as one of the players. Now, some of the things to consider, user experience I put as yellow, and first mover advantage I put as yellow. It's not Ethereum virtual machine compatible, and that's why I put these things as yellow. But that is coming in the future, so that's a temporary thing to take note of. Etc. And it's in middle of the line with, in the ratio of capital per accounts, it's in the middle of the line, which shows that it might be, consolidated or in the right price range. Okay, so that is basically the flyover of the in-detailed components. So once again, the absolute summary. Low market cap with accomplished CEO, I put no. I put early to social media, no. It does have a live niche, which is great. The pros, now the end of video summary. Fastest grade, so the pros are that it's the fastest grade technology in the crypto space. Live niche, solid use cases, very large target market, strong set of institutional support, some of the best technology in the crypto space. Now, the cons associated with this project, it's not Ethereum virtual compatible, and this is the biggest risk right here that I have, is that VCs have that have been involved in early funding are sitting on 300,000% returns, and that is, I don't like buying things where VCs are going to dump on me. That's one of the things I don't like. Max level hype, it is in the middle of the lane hype narrative right now, so that is another thing. Everyone is hyping it. And the roadmap needs better work, in my opinion. And those are the cons. Now, that being said, that's my overview. I think this thing's here to stay. it's going to get market share and it's going to stick around. That's my assessment of Solana. So if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And I'm going to do my Patreon video next.